All right, y'all boys. So as y'all already know, man, OBJ just previously signed with the Miami Dolphins, which is a very good look for the Dolphins right now. A very scary look for the league. But let's just see how this may possibly even be scary for the Dolphins. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe, bro. Original link to the video will be in the description down below. But let's go ahead and just jump right into it, though. No cap.
At the end of the day, we have good players here. Mike, Brandon, and I will have a lot of discussions, and we'll talk with Steve as we get through here, and we'll try and keep as many of the players here that we can.
I gotta admit, watching the Miami Dolphins manage their salary cap situation this offseason was nothing short of impressive.
I wonder how did
Now
they pay him
went out
facts.
and signed quite possibly the best player they could have signed to be their wide receiver 3, and at the very minimum, a great locker room guy, I think. Before we get to the content, we have a lot of content coming for you guys today, so make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way,
Okay. Hey, shout out to the microphone, definitely, because I'll be reacting to a lot of his videos too. So definitely go subscribe to him for sure. Yeah. I love his intro too. I ain't gonna lie.
so we've been hitting an NBA picks for free.
Prize picks.
Double your
Must be nice.
down below. 1-2. What's going on, everybody? Enter.
Amazon is over.
Yo,
I can
goddamn.
show you how to.
My nigga. Come on, Mike. I ain't gonna lie, man. Come on, man.
During this offseason, the Miami Dolphins knew that keeping their top talent would be an uphill battle. Now, the NFL salary cap did increase to over $255 million.
Oh, it did?
2024, which is a little bit more than $30 million over last season. But the Miami Dolphins still began free agency more than $38 million over the cap, which was the league's
He almost fell on his
third worst
head.
cap situation. And they were one of 7 teams who were over the cap. And even with a much better cap situation than originally expected, Miami still faced a huge disadvantage in free agency, and they were one of those teams that had to cut some of their key players in order to clear some cap space. Going into this offseason, they had 26 players who were scheduled to become free agents, including multiple players in the defense's front 7. Even their general manager, Chris Greer, had to address this reality in the aftermath of the Dolphins' playoff loss.
At the end of the day, we have good players here, and everyone will have a market. We're not really right now concerned about where we'll be in March, salary cap wise. I think, Brandon Shore, Max Napolitano, we've had a lot of conversations. They've given us a lot of flexibility with multiple options of ways we can, be creative. And so hats off to them just, through their work and grind on things. And so Mike, Brandon, and I will have a lot of discussions, and we'll talk with Steve as we get through here, and we'll try and keep as many of the players here that we can.
So the Dolphins got to work and immediately made some moves. They released defensive end Emmanuel Ogbah less than 2 years after signing him to a massive 4-year contract extension. This move itself saved the Miami Dolphins over $13 million, but it also cost them a valuable pass rusher who bounced back after an injury-plagued 2022 season.
He was tough.
That same day, the Miami Dolphins told their longest tenured defensive player, a player that was considered to be one of the best defensive backs in the NFL just a mere 2 years ago, Xavier Howard, that he would also be released. This move itself saved the Miami Dolphins $18.5 million in cap space by officially releasing him after June 1st.
Regardless, bro, they're losing a very good guy. I'm not gonna lie. Like, one of the best corners in the league, no cap.
Just 2 years prior, Xavier Howard signed a record-breaking contract extension after publicly requesting a trade. But the Dolphins weren't done there. They released linebacker Jerome Baker in order to save just under $10 million, a player that was perceived to be the heart and soul of the Miami Dolphins defense during the previous 6 seasons.
They lost a lot of defensive guys.
To initially take a pay cut for the team for year 7, but he couldn't agree with the team on how steep the pay cut would be. The Dolphins would then get to work on adding new talent to the roster. One of the splashiest additions that they've made was signing tight end Jonnu Smith to a 2-year contract worth up to $10 million. They would then restructure 4 contracts, including Jalen Ramsey's, to clear just under $29 million. I forgot
Jalen Ramsey was on the Dolphins.
At the same time, reality would hit the Miami Dolphins very hard. They would lose safety Brandon Jones to the Denver Broncos, and probably the hardest pill to swallow was when they lost their defensive tackle Christian Wilkins to the Las Vegas Raiders on a 4-year 4-year, $110 million contract with nearly $85 million guaranteed. Wilkins and the Dolphins had contract disputes before the season, including a hold-in during training camp, and the Dolphins elected not to franchise tag him for a guaranteed $22 million, which also makes sense because there was no way that they would be able to beat the Las Vegas Raiders offer.
Bro, they lost hella defensive players, bro. Like, they lost a lot. And key defensive players at that, bro. So, I will say this. This next year, I would not expect, or I would not be surprised to see the Dolphins have one of the worst defenses in the league, bro.
Don't get me wrong, this was a huge loss for the Miami Dolphins. Christian Wilkins was just a season removed from a record-breaking season with 98 tackles, which was the most ever by a defensive tackle, and he owned the 8th highest run-stop win rate since he entered the league in 2019. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a huge knock against Christian Wilkins for his lack of sacks, but fortunately for the Dolphins, help was on the way.
He's still a run stopper.
Shaq Barrett, a premier edge rusher in the NFL a few seasons prior, that has been declining in recent years to a one-year prove-it deal worth up to $9 million. The hope was that he would be able to fill the gap left behind Andrew Van Ginkel, who departed to Minnesota. And probably their best addition was signing Jordan Brooks to a 3-year contract worth $26 million to replace Jerome Baker. He set
don't they got Bobby Wagner too
for the Miami Dolphins and is more than capable of filling the hole that Jerome Baker left behind. But what about offensively?
Okay, never mind. Fuck am I talking about?
That if they were in a situation like they were in last year in the Ice Bowl versus Kansas City, they'd be able to make the most of their offense. A team that was memed for the fact that they weren't able to defeat the premier teams in the NFL. We've even seen memes calling the Miami Dolphins the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC. Which, as a Cowboy fan, I have to say, is one of the worst insults you can
that's disrespectful.
in the AFC.
That is disrespectful.
It's not really much of a stretch. The Miami Dolphins are notorious for being able to put up 70-point games against one of the worst teams in the NFL. But whenever they face off against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs or even the Buffalo Bills in Week 4, they just don't show up.
Like,
the
you
Bills
need a
put up
defense,
48
bro.
Points against them in Week 4 of this past season. But then they're able to defeat the New York Jets 30-0 in Week 15. And their season concluded at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that Tyreek Hill consistently likes to trash talk despite them doing just fine ever since they moved on from him.
When the Miami Dolphins come to Arrowhead Stadium this year, guess what we gonna do? Guess what we gonna do? I hate to throw up the peace sign against y'all. I hate to do it. But guess what? I'm gonna be y'all worst enemy that day.
So how does this team improve offensively?
Yo, we definitely gonna react to that game too.
At the fact that Von Achan wasn't healthy in the latter part of the season, or the offensive line wasn't healthy. Maybe it's the fact that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill get shut down in these games because the Kansas City Chiefs, after all, had one of the best defenses in the entire NFL this past year. So what is the Miami Dolphins?
You need a good defense, bro.
On offense. Well, one player that has been consistently linked to them throughout the entire offseason was none other than Odell Beckham Jr. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. has had one of the most unique careers I think I've ever seen out of a wide receiver. A player that, in my opinion, throughout the first 5 seasons of his career, was one of the most dominant wide receivers in the NFL. But it seems like the moment OBJ...
Question.
Come on, Mike. Well, no one fuck with the ads. Won't fuck with the ads. Won't fuck with the ads. Won't fuck with the ads. We don't fuck with the ads.
Got to Cleveland, his career sort of fell off.
I forgot he was even on Cleveland.
Mayfield for that. You could blame the Cleveland Browns offense
Time
for that.
passed.
You could blame Odell Beckham Jr.'s availability for that. But we all know what would happen. In 2020, OBJ's dad would promote a video where Baker Mayfield would always miss Odell Beckham Jr. whenever he was wide open and just not throw him the football. The result, eventually OBJ and the Cleveland Browns agreed to part ways. Odell Beckham Jr. goes to the Los Angeles Rams, shows that he's capable of being that same dominant wide receiver once again if he's utilized properly, and wins a Super Bowl. But unfortunately, he would tear his ACL in the Super Bowl. So he would miss 2022. He would sign with the Baltimore Ravens in 2023 on a 1-year, $18 million contract. But in that season, he wasn't much of a factor. And this is despite his quarterback winning an MVP. So now at the age of 32,
Lamar Jackson,
the question
for
of
sure.
whether or not OBJ can still be that #1 wide receiver. Could he be as useful as he was at the time when he was with the Los Angeles Rams. Does he still have some juice left in the tank? Does he still have the same explosiveness? Well, the Miami Dolphins are willing to give it a shot because according to Dove Kleiman, Odell Beckham Jr. and Kim Kardashian have reportedly broken up after 7 months of dating.
What?
Wait. No, that's not the news I want to get to you guys.
Right. What they had to do anything?
Rappaport, the Miami Dolphins are expected to sign Ravens free agent wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., sources tell me, and Tom Pelissaro. A new home for the speedster as Miami's offense just gets faster. Now, I have a lot of issues with this report. One is the fact that you're calling OBJ a speedster still.
Right.
But the number one concern I had about the Dolphins' interest in OBJ was how much would they pay Odell Beckham Jr.? Last year, OBJ got the Ravens to pay him $18 million. So if the Dolphins were thinking of doing the same thing, I would think it's a terrible deal. But in this case, they're signing him to a one-year deal worth $8.25 million. He took less than was offered elsewhere, but wanted the fit. I think this is a home run for both OBJ and for the Miami Dolphins. In the case of the Miami Dolphins, you get probably the best wide receiver 3 you can possibly get to pair with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle has to be in heaven, man. Imagine being in a locker room as a wide receiver with Odell Beckham Jr. and Tyreek Hill. That's gotta be so
that's tough.
You know for a fact Jalen Waddle grew up watching these two. In the case of OBJ, he probably took less, in my opinion, because he's playing for Miami and there's no state income tax in Miami, so it's probably going to all factor out financially.
That was not all the reason why. You in Miami, gang. You can't cap, bro. Being in Miami, that's a great place to play. Like, bro, the females, you know what I'm saying? So there's plenty of more reasons just to the income state tax.
Tyreek Hill decided to play for the Miami Dolphins over the New York Jets because New York has a crazy state income tax. But I also really like the fit for OBJ. I had questions about how useful Odell Beckham Jr. was going to be in the Baltimore Ravens offense with Lamar Jackson. And it's nothing against Lamar Jackson, man. It's just historically, Lamar Jackson hasn't been the most wide receiver friendly quarterback. And this is part of the beauty of Lamar Jackson's game. Last year, he had over 4,500 all-purpose yards, but 881 of those yards came on the ground, whereas he threw for 3,670.
That's still pretty damn good.
Go to Tua Tagovailoa, who isn't really known for scrambling, who is coming off of a season where he threw for over 4,600 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. I think an 8-yard season is actually possible for OBJ in these circumstances, and I think it's a great deal for the Miami Dolphins. You get quite possibly the best wide receiver 3 you can get, and for OBJ, who should see significantly more volume than when he was with the Baltimore Ravens. The Miami Dolphins are going to be a problem to stop defensively if their wide receiver core can stay healthy, and in my opinion, Tua has shown to be more than capable of getting his wide receivers the football.
Yes,
so I give A+ to both sides. I think it's a perfect fit, and I think we might even be in store for an MVP caliber season from Tua if he can stay healthy. Let me know in the comment section down below, especially if you're a Dolphins fan, how do you feel about this? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.
All right, now me personally, bro, I'm definitely not a Dolphins fan. I'm a Giants fan and a Falcons fan for sure. What I will say this though, bro, having OBJ on your team is definitely a good, weapon to have. But they're gonna need a defense, bro. The Dolphins are gonna need a defense. They gave up hella guys. Like, they gave up too many important players, bro. Like, I would not be surprised if I could see them have a worse record. Not a worse record, but just a worse season than they did from before. Just off the muscle, bro. Like, where's your defense at? You still got to play defense. I ain't gonna lie. I know they picked up a couple more guys, but it's definitely, I don't think it would be enough to really say that, okay, like, they have something going here. But I don't know, man. I could be wrong at the same time. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below about what you think about the Dolphins and how they're going to do in this NFL season. We're going to react to hella NFL highlights once the season comes. But, yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you're not subscribed to my channel, be sure to subscribe, bro. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers very soon. But, yeah, it's your boy Caprice the Great, and I'm out. No cap.